Hello to the gathered rats of the internet and welcome to another Warhammer video over on PCGamesN.com. Ben Barrett here, joined by Richard Scott Jones.
Hello.
The war to my hammer, the expert on all things small and modular, and we're going to be talking to you about the biggest reveal of the year, the shock surprise that will have you reeling for days.
No one saw it coming.
It's the Skaven. They are in Total War Warhammer 2. They have been ratified, as it were. And you've played them, you've seen them, you're impressed?
Yeah. Very.
So tell me all about them. They are weird.
They are weird, yeah. Well, I was always curious to see how they'd be implemented in Warhammer 2 ever since it was obvious from that first teaser they would be in it. Given that they are one of Warhammer's most distinctive factions. So on that note, two things that you need to know about how they'll play on the campaign: corruption and food.
Let's kick off with food.
Yeah.
Everybody loves that.
Everybody does. And the Skaven especially. So as well as regular gold, which the Skaven use, and warpstone, which is their ritual currency, which you'll try and gather throughout the campaign to try and destabilize the vortex at the center of Ulthuan, Skaven have a third sort of unique currency, which is a little bit like Bretonia's chivalry mechanic, and that's food. So food, when chivalry is high, you get all these bonuses. When food is high, when food is plentiful, it affects and gives bonuses to growth, army leadership, and public order across the faction, and equally massive penalties when food is low because you're starving.
Yeah.
Each army will cost some food to maintain per turn, as well as gold, and you'll get food mainly in post-battle loot and from sacking settlements. So in that, there is a bit of a nudge to keep expanding, keep conquering, much like Chaos do when they try and earn favour, but not quite the same. Some settlements will have agriculture nearby. These are resource nodes on the world map as far as we can tell, which will give a consistent source of food per turn, but they look like they'll be quite rare. So as we say, because of that, there is this nudge to keep expanding. And ways that you can use food, these are really creative. I quite like this one in particular. When you colonize a captured settlement, you'll have the chance to spend extra food to start its main building chain at up to tier 3.
Oh wow, okay, so like you're speeding everything up, and B, you're kind of taking a gamble that you are going to be able to continue to make food and get it from other locations. Maybe this is one of those places with the agriculture places, and therefore you want to get that upgraded quickly anyway. Yeah. Or maybe you're just like, well, I've got a huge stockpile and I'm going to go wreck some tools anyway.
It's really a creative use of the mechanic, because if you're confident that you're going to get more food, then you can start. It's starting a building chain at tier 3 skips potentially dozens of turns of population growth and construction. So it means. Oh
yeah, I didn't think about the population growth angle. Yeah, because construction's only like 2 or 3 turns per building, but actually waiting for them to be big enough is a lot longer.
Is even more. So this means that the Skaven are way better than any other race, at least potentially, if you have enough food, at spreading and expanding, which is very sort of thematic for the Skaven. And that's food. Corruption.
Okay.
There's a new Skaven corruption type, which will hurt public order in a province, just like vampire or chaos corruption. Right. But the difference is that the Skaven will suffer from it as well. If you're vampires or chaos, you want to spread corruption because it's good for you. Yeah,
and it even benefited some of the chaos or vampire-based races as well, like the beastmen, right?
Yeah. But in the Skaven's case, the Skaven is meant to represent the fact that the Skaven don't so much control a region as infest it, right? So high corruption regions are like any rat colony that grows too big. They get chaotic and entropic. If corruption gets too high, you'll see, as with any other faction suffering high corruption, you'll get Skaven rebellions.
I see. So because there are too many of them there, they're not happy about that. Even though they're rats, it doesn't really matter to them. Presumably, is there a middle ground where they actually get a bonus, or is it you just always want it to be as low as possible?
Well, there are advantages to having high corruption. So, like, corruption can spread to adjacent provinces, so you can use it as an offensive tactic at a strategic level. Right. And also, you get more uses of the menace below in battle mechanic, which we'll talk about in a sec. In high corruption regions. But one little twist that I do quite like is that if a Skaven uprising happens, sometimes it can be led by one of your own lords to represent Skaven treachery, because they're famous for that. So your lords now have a loyalty meter, which is affected by corruption in the province. So with that in mind, there are ways that you can manage corruption. So settlement building chains and lord skill trees have both been revamped, and some of the new options are mutually exclusive. So you can use one path of building trees or one path of lord skills to try and rein in corruption or to unleash it, depending on your preferences.
Okay, and that's kind of a strategic decision that you make fairly early on, where you kind of go, okay, today I'm going to play high corruption, and, or I'm going to play low corruption, and
today I'm going to be aggressive.
I see. Okay. You mentioned your lords turning against you. Skaven are not particularly nice beings. Any other sneaky tactics we should be aware of?
Yeah, no, there's a bunch of other little sort of little tidbits on the campaign map. Corruption and food are the main things, but so this is one thing I was really curious to see. Like, Skaven are an underground race, right, and almost entirely in the lore. So I wondered how this would be represented, and it turns out that their cities are invisible.
That'll do it. Yeah, that's pretty sneaky.
So other factions can't see your cities on the world map. They'll see just ruins, which are a new campaign map feature, kind of like Civ 5 goodie huts or Civ 6 goodie huts, indeed.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, and other factions will just see your cities as ruins.
So they'll be like, "Oh, I'm going to go get that goodie hut," and then you're like, "Here's an army."
Here's an army, exactly. So they can send.
I like it.
You can send heroes to scout out ruins and check out whether or not there are Skaven there. But if you just send your army to go exploring, then you could just trip and fall into a massive Skaven city with a huge garrison.
Right.
Which is good fun.
But can't you just then run away? Like, I mean, is that...
Yeah, you can.
Okay, I see. Okay. But then they can come chase you and you don't know where you are and you're like, oh, it turns out all of these ruins
and
are...
at the very least, you don't have a goodie hut.
Right. Yes, well, true.
Also, and this is obvious really, Skaven can use the underway.
Yeah.
You'd expect that.
Yeah.
They also have a unique army stance, which is stalking. So when you adopt that stance, you get reduced movement, but it does also give your army a chance to ambush an enemy, even when you're making a normal attack.
That's pretty powerful, right? I mean...
It's fairly powerful. Well, it depends how much the movement range is reduced.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, it's very sneaky, very Skaven. And lastly, plagues.
Okay.
Plagues.
Sweet. Love plagues.
Plagues are back from Attila.
Hooray! Are we happy about that? Were they good?
Well, I didn't. I personally didn't much enjoy them in Attila, but it makes a lot of sense here because Skaven are all about spreading the disease.
Presumably, I mean, you must be able to control that in some way.
Yes.
Like, it isn't just a negative to you. It must.
Yeah.
If anything, it must just give you buffs.
Unlike in Attila, it doesn't just sort of essentially come out of nowhere.
Yeah. Okay. So where do these plagues come from?
Right. So there's a new thing called rites. These are basically power moves that you conduct on the campaign map. Each race gets 4. The Skaven simply buy theirs with gold. There are unlock conditions, and some will also take a number of turns to complete. Right. It may be that other races' rights will vary a little bit more in terms of what it takes to deploy them.
Yeah.
But so the Skaven will spread plagues by summoning a pestilence priest with one of their rights. That's a unique hero.
Sounds like a great guy.
Yeah,
it's really the life of every party.
Stand-up fella.
Yeah.
But he's a unique hero who can infect a target army or settlement as a hero action, after which he'll die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, he's lived a good life. Got what he wanted done.
He's done his job.
Really hit the right point.
Infected armies will suffer heavy casualties like attrition damage, like they did in Attila, and will spread the plague around their faction.
Wow. Presumably this must be quite hard to do, because otherwise you'd want to do this to every army and every settlement that you came across.
Yeah, like they're quite expensive, and it looks like their costs will scale according to where you are in the turn. You've got a bunch of other cool ones as well. So there's one that increases their growth rate and their leadership and their income, and reduces army upkeep costs massively faction wide for a certain number of turns, just to represent the Skaven multiplying.
Oh sure, and just kind of endlessly becoming more.
There's another kind of hero that they can summon called a priest of doom, who can plant basically a nuke under an enemy city.
Jesus,
that's good fun.
Oh, I can't remember what they're called, but they were a large part of the plot for a while, right? The warpstone nukes.
Yeah,
basically. Yeah, I remember
one of them.
Speaking of warpstone and nukes and destroying things, battle, Skaven.
Good.
I got there.
Like the segue.
Yeah. What are they like? Come on, when you're telling ratlings to fire endlessly, what are they like?
Yes, so I mean, in battle, their army roster is massive on infantry and war machines, but there's very little cavalry and no cavalry and very little armor.
Okay, interesting.
And their ranged units, they have some artillery, but that's quite high tier. Right. Their ranged units mostly use slings and gas grenades rather than archers or handguns. Okay. So they're pretty short range, but there's lots of ability to shoot while moving, which gives them a certain agility.
And very kind of just the idea of wearing you down, and then there's 50,000 of them and 4 of you.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of focus on outnumbering, especially early doors. And Skaven morale, sort of army-wide mechanics or traits, Skaven morale is very, very fickle.
Right.
So they run easily, and when they're running, they actually get army-wide boosts to speed while they're fleeing, which is quite good fun.
That is good.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So, I mean, it could even be a thing where you actually play around dropping your morale so that you run away, but then you've you know, maybe you've built another
I think you'd be,
front, as it were. I mean, you'd have to be very, very careful with it, right?
You'd be quite a brave general to try that, but potentially.
I'm doing
They also rally very, very quickly once they think they're safe. So
well,
they run easily and then they rally easily. They're very cowardly like that.
The Menace Below, you mentioned this the other day when we were just talking.
The other day.
What's the hit with this?
Yeah, so the Menace Below is a cool Skaven mechanic. Basically, it allows you to summon a unit of low-tier infantry anywhere on the battlefield.
Okay, like a deep strike.
Even behind
fantasy.
Enemy walls, yeah. Even behind enemy walls. So one tactic you could do is just pop up a unit of rats inside an enemy castle, go for the capture point, and then you force the enemy to pull some units off the battlements to come and deal with you or something. You get more uses of the Menace Below, as I mentioned earlier, when there's a higher Skaven corruption in the local region.
Okay,
and you can also spend food before a battle to get more.
Like, where does this max out at? I mean, can you produce like 10 units?
I didn't explore the upper reaches of the
okay, because I mean that's very, very powerful. But it seems like they seem like a faction overall where you're trying to manage all these different resources, and if you ever have them all high, which is probably quite challenging, if not impossible, you're pretty goddamn unstoppable.
Yeah, there's definitely a sense of momentum play about them, and I mean, for sure, early on, you get this, like, their units are very, very cheap to produce. They're quick to produce, and they're cheap to maintain, and that's especially true early on in the game. Until tier 3, I think your only units are slaves, clan rats, and night runners, and fans of the lore will know that those aren't high end.
But so presumably there are a lot of them. Then
yeah,
it's all about
like I say, they're cheap to produce, cheap to maintain, and they're very, very quick. I think even global recruitment is only 1 or 2 turns, so you can run large stacks very, very early on. So your tactic, or at least my tactic, in the early stages of the campaign was to rush, outnumber your neighbours, and then use the Menace Below while you're in battle to get some sneaky rear charges.
Okay.
Yeah, but then higher up in the Protectorate.
So presumably this is where it gets super nasty.
In like at tier 3, things open up massively depending on the units that you choose to build, or the buildings that you choose to build, rather.
Yeah.
You can get rat ogres, plague monks, and storm vermin. They're all tier 3.
Those are all very Warhammer. That's just some baseline Warhammer right there.
Yeah, they can all hold their own in combat, and storm vermin are pretty much your only armoured unit. So
I see. Okay.
They're very
they sound a little like, because is it the vampire counts have no vehicles?
Vampire counts have no archers.
That was it. Yeah, they had no ranged units. It seems similar here, where you don't have X.
Yeah.
Everything else you have is great, but you need to play around this idea.
There are definitely some limitations in the army. It's very infantry based, very numbers based, very sort of war machines as well. It's a little bit glass cannony, although there are some troops which will really hold their own, like storm vermin, like I say. At the high end, you got hell pit abominations.
I mean, that's
which
again
just
wonderful Warhammer right there.
Yeah, they're one of their special rules is too horrible to die. That's literally what it's called.
That's how I feel on a daily basis, so that's fair enough.
Yeah.
So is this the stuff that's up at tier 4 and 5?
Yeah, but hell pit abominations are tier 5. Doom wheels are another tier 5. And yeah, at this stage, at the higher end of the Skaven tech tree, you get lots of options to play with.
Sweet. That's everything from the Skaven. Very much hope you enjoyed. If you head over to the website, we have the initial announcement, as well as your full thoughts on what they would like to play and that sort of thing.
Lots more detail.
Loads more detail. We've also updated the Everything We Know with plenty of new details, as well as fixing the horrendous mistakes. What was it you did? Play Globadeers with clan?
As an astute reader pointed out, I accidentally suggested that the Poison Wind Globadeers were a clan Pestilence invention rather than a clan Scryer invention. I don't know how I did that. I must have had an off day. Sorry.
Just absolutely terrible journalism from Richard Scott Jones there, for which he apologises and will be lopping off 3 of his fingers. Thanks very much for watching. There will be more about Warhammer 2 coming tomorrow, as well as no doubt more throughout the year as we lead up to a release at the end of September.
Yeah.
Nailed it. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Take care.